What up, everybody? Happy Thursday night. This is 4 Star Chicago Sports. This is the bare minimum. I'm Dustin Jones. Brandon Duplessis is with me. How you doing tonight, boss?
Doing good, man. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Today was my last day of work for the next 2 weeks, so I'm fucking thrilled about that. I'm-
Yeah, it's always a good feeling. Always feels well deserved.
yeah. So, just getting ready, trying to get ready for the baby. So that's gonna be a lot
As
of
ready,
work still, but
as
at
ready
least
as you
I'm.
can be, I guess.
No, yeah, but I'm great, man. I'm happy to be here as always. We got the combine to talk about that started today. Defensive linemen and linebackers went. We got the Trey Smith news. We got the player grades that came out. I'm sorry, the players union grades that came out yesterday on the teams. There was some interesting stuff there with the Bears that's worth talking about. Man, where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's dive in there first because I think we can all say as Bears fans we were a little flabbergasted by some of the grades the Bears
In what way?
organization received. And it's
Flabbergasted
higher,
in what way?
higher than I think everybody would have expected, to be honest. The only real complaint was, well, one thing that kind of threw me for a loop, and I guess it's hard as fans to understand this, is the treatment of family was a C plus, where most teams got A's and B's. Like,
Yeah, for sure. That stood out to me. Yeah. Looking at it now, treatment of families was a C plus. Food dining area C plus. All right, so their cafeteria sucks. They got to
yeah,
do
we've
better
heard
there.
they said that last year. They said the facility is kind of
Nutrition
bummed.
dietitian, they got a B. Locker room A minus. Good facilities. Training room B plus. Good facilities. Training staff solid B. Weight room is an A. All right. Strength coaches B plus. Team travels a B. Ownership an A minus. That one was nice to hear. I mean, as much as we've doubted George and some of the things that have happened throughout his tenure, the players seem to have his back on this at least. And then obviously the head coach was a C. What I thought was interesting, and I sent you yesterday, there was 3 teams that got a C. There was the Bears, Jaguars, and the Browns. Only one of those coaches is actually still in their position. I mean, the Jaguars fired their coach, the Bears fired their coach. Stefanski's still in his position with that C. So I mean, if you're seeing Eberflus get a C, who was fired middle of the season, like that's not a glowing endorsement of Stefanski. I just thought that was kind of interesting when it came to these player grade, these team report cards. But the Bears, that's not a surprise, is it? That Eberflus got a C. I feel like I might have graded it lower than that.
Yeah, you'd think if a coach was terminated, that's just an inevitable F. But the thing with Stefanski that surprised me most is this guy's a year removed from Coach of the Year. I mean,
Yeah,
like
things have
I think,
taken a
I think we could all agree he kind of overachieved a year ago, right? Not last season, the one prior, but he had the most cap on IR, which obviously Deshaun Watson was the majority of that, but Nick Chubb as well. He took Joe Flacco and his stout defense to a playoffs in a really tough division, man. Really tough division.
it shows you how quickly things can change. It does.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're going to be looking to the future with these report cards, and hopefully the coaching staff for the Bears gets a much better grade. We're all kind of hoping that that this is a very good coaching staff they put in place on paper. Hopefully they can execute that. But there were a couple things that I thought were interesting from just from the players' perspective, Brandon, on Matt Eberflus was the most frequent complaint named by Bears players surveyed by the NFLPA. According to the NFLPA, players responding to the survey before Eberflus was fired felt like he lacked a willingness to listen to the players and the Players Leadership Council, and he mismanaged the weekly team schedule. No surprises there, but it's pretty blunt and out there that he mismanaged things, and the players felt like he didn't listen to them. I mean, you can't be that kind of head coach or leader in any position and be successful, can you?
No, listening's the most important part of this business, man. Any business, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the schedule thing was kind of made public by Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown, when he took over as head coach, said the first thing he wants to fix is the routine day to day because it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So that was publicized, and I think the listening aspect was kind of publicized by the players themselves. You know, they felt like we heard a lot of like, well, I mean, we you had the example of Kevin Byard saying in a game we should press here. I think we should press, and the result of that was a Hail Mary that lost the Bears basically their season. Really, that's where it derailed, right?
Yeah, man. And what it comes down to is stubbornness. I mean, to me, like Matty Reflus had an unwillingness to bend in terms of how he wanted to do things, and you got to be flexible and you got to be open to like making it as easy on your players as possible so that they then buy into you. And obviously you got to hold them accountable too, so it's like you want to give them an ease in terms of how they're able to go about their business on a day-to-day basis and in the games. But you also and there was also an extreme lack of accountability from by all accounts in that locker room under Matt Eberflus. So it's like you're not listening to them and you're also not disciplining them either. So it's like what are you actually doing? If my babysitter was that type of person, I would not leave my kids with them. you know
Well, and you got to think, Dustin, the greatest tool a coach has in his belt during a game is the player's response and reaction to what's happening on the field, right? I feel like often
they
players
see
get,
things you don't see,
yeah,
right? Like
they're
they're
like we,
experiencing the game a different
yeah, we
way.
even down to a player weakness, right? I'm sure there's a guy like Montez Sweat who's saying like, you got to put me across from their left tackle or the, you know what I mean? It's there's the things these players are telling coaches. This has happened throughout all of sports, and most coaches take that, you know, take that to heart. And it seemed like Eberflus, like you said, just didn't want to bend on what he had planned. That's why there was no adjustments for this Bears team during games.
That stubbornness seems to be a through line for the last few coaches for the Chicago Bears, like an unwillingness to adapt the way you do things to tailor it to your players. Ben Johnson has come out and said straight up, like he's going to tailor his game plans and his approach to the players that this team has. So you're hoping that Ben Johnson is going to break that, and usher the Chicago Bears into a new era and also hopefully a winning one, because what we've seen these Bears coaches do in the past, I mean, maybe it's produced some results in Matt Nagy, but ultimately that stubbornness is what killed him in my mind as the Chicago Bears head coach. So you're hoping to see this change and potentially Ben Johnson's personality and the way he's going to approach things impact this roster in a very positive way. That's the hope.
And when it comes to accountability, I think it's safe to say that in any industry, a person wants accountability from their superior. I don't. There's no industry in which you don't want to be held accountable for what it is you're responsible for. Because, like you said, Dustin, you lose that, you just have a losing operation. No matter what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, again, not surprising that Eberflus got a poor grade, and I mean it should have been expected. We're moving on, but it's just interesting stuff to talk about in terms of what we experienced this past season as fans, what the players experienced this past season as players on the Chicago Bears team under that leadership or lack thereof, and really hope that we have a complete contrast to that going forward with our new head coach hire. Dibs, what up,
Yeah.
my man? How you
What's
doing?
going on, Dibs? Thanks for
Yeah, thanks
joining
for
us.
joining us. Hit that
And
like
I
button.
guess something to be excited about as well is accountability and listening are two things that should be very easy to fix, right? Like Ben Johnson should be first and foremost. Those should be the two things you can check off the box for these players. It's like I'm gonna listen to you. You know what I mean? It's accountability, man. He looked the players dead in the eye and said, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable." So I think they kind of already know what's coming there, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to see what Ben Johnson does as the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and I'm excited to hopefully move past this Matt Eberflus era altogether. Just thought it was interesting stuff that came about in terms of this past season, but we're
I,
we're
I,
moving on.
I will say this. I think
Oh,
I'm learning more about more about George than I thought I knew from the way that Ben Johnson spoke, the way that these players graded him. I mean, it's pretty clear that the people working in this organization respect the ownership. I'm
No,
seeing
yeah.
that from every
Again,
angle.
but the fact that Ben Johnson is here at all is the biggest confidence boost that you can have as Bears fans, because Ben Johnson was supposed to be the guy that he wasn't going to pick a team that didn't have their shit together. So the fact that he chose the Bears, that says something. That should inspire confidence in us as fans. It shouldn't change our perspective altogether, because there's still things that need to be done and seen in terms of results, because that's what it ultimately is going to come down to. But it should instill some hope and some more confidence. Dibs points out, and yeah, it's been a damn while, Dibs. Last time was October. Well, thanks for coming back to us. We
Yeah,
missed you.
good to have you back, man.
Yeah, we're fired up about Ben Johnson, my man. Hopefully you are as well. If you got any thoughts on it, throw them in the chat. We'll keep chopping it up with you.
Yeah, and just
Brandon,
I don't want to keep beating it, but just remember how you felt when the Bears hired Eberflus compared to how you feel after the hiring of Ben Johnson. I mean, before you even see the footwork, it's just a better feeling. It's like the Bears actually got somebody who was sought after.
bro, I
So
remember the way the sun was shining on my vehicle while I was driving and texting you guys how fucking disappointed I was that they had hired Matt Eberflus when that was reported. I was so pissed off. I
it
like
was
remember
just
it
so
so clearly,
so
man.
confusing, man. Just didn't make sense. Never does.
Dibs is fired up. Hell yeah. So other news that came out here today, Trey Smith, by all accounts, and I mean, I think Schefter reported it, is going to get franchise tagged by the Chiefs, or basically that's a done deal. Franchise tag. Trey Smith has been kind of that gleam of hope that the Bears have had to, like, this one guy we can go get, throw all the money at him, and he could help stabilize our offensive line. My first thought from the beginning, and I brought it up, was why would the Chiefs let this guy go if he's so good? Everyone's telling me, well, they can't finagle the cap. They're not going to figure it out. It looks like they're going to, because the Chiefs are not a dumb team. They understand how good Trey Smith is and how important he is to their offensive line. So they're going to figure this out. And the thing that you got to remember with teams like the Chiefs, winning teams, guys will take less to be on a winning team. Guys will, restructure their contracts to help get one more year out of it. So the Chiefs are going to figure it out, man. And it sucks, because Trey Smith would have looked great in a Bears uniform, Brandon, but it's not in
Yes.
the cards for us Bears fans.
No, it's not always going to go your way. We wanted Caleb Williams in the draft, Dustin. That happened. We wanted Ben Johnson as a head coach. That happened. And Trey Smith was kind of that for me in free agency. And it makes you a little less excited about free agency, unfortunately. But it does mean that maybe the Bears are willing to spend a little more money somewhere else, right? Because the best guard, and probably the only guard I would have overpaid, is off the board.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are going to overpay him if he stays on that franchise tag. It's going to be $23 million a year, basically, right? So it's like that's a high number to pay a guard. I'm sure they're going to want to work out a long-term deal, but like from a Bears perspective, I start to look at what is available, and it's like it's crazy how one player coming off of your free agent board can dry things up so fucking quickly. Like I'm looking around, it's like this free agent offensive line class looks so much better this morning than it does tonight. Brandon, what do you think? Like, what are you looking at in terms of these free agents that are left out there, and who's worth a stab?
You still
Harris,
got
what up,
some
bro?
names. You've got Fries. What's going on, Harris? You got Fries. You got Becton. But
He
my
hasn't been with us since October either. Shit.
what I said initially stands just even firmer now. Is I'm not willing to pay these other guys probably more than they should get. You know what I mean? So the only way you're going to sign anybody at this position who's left in free agency is if it comes at a deal. And Dustin, we're not very good at bargaining for offensive linemen, right? This hasn't worked out for Ryan Poles in the past. So I don't want to see any of these. I'll tell you this. I hope they don't settle. I hope we don't see the 1 year, $4 million from whomever some other team treated as their trash. You know what I mean? I don't want
Yeah.
that. I don't want a bunch of depth guys competing for a starting position because that seems to be the trend here. So
Well,
as long as they know now where they need to look for what's available, right?
Well, let's talk about what is available. I mean, you mentioned Mekhi Becton, and man, I'm just gonna go ahead and take him off the board too. And there's no way Philly lets him go after the season they had with Saquon Barkley running and how big of a deal Becton was to that, how great his run blocking is overall. I don't see them letting him go, and they got plenty of cap. That's not a concern with the Eagles. I think they'd be stupid to let him go. So, I mean, you're talking about Will Fries out of Indianapolis, and you're talking about Zerline out of Detroit, who is a top guard in the NFL, but he's up there in age. You know, you're going to have him for a year or two, but like are probably a 2-3 year deal, but like most of it on the front end there. I mean, which
Well,
of those two guys are you picking, Brandon? Which of those two guys are you willing to pay 13, 14
yeah,
million a year?
neither. And that's not, we wanted to talk about this. What's you said so much can change because of one signing. And honestly, when it comes to straight performance, on the field performance, I think the best available guard is on the Bears, man.
Well, he's not hurt. Then
Just
that's where I was
was.
going next.
Yeah.
You're ruining my segue there. But yeah, I mean, the PFF's guard list of free agents, Tevin Jenkins is third. So my question then becomes like, has it just this Trey Smith thing happening? Does that make re-signing Tevin Jenkins more palatable to Bears fans who have been saying for months now, there's no way we can re-sign this guy? Brandon, it sounds like you're open to that possibility.
Absolutely, Dustin. You can't fix it all, right? And you, if like I said, you've got to start to focus now on what's available. So, and I mean, in every asset, right? Every facet, I should say. So, like, is there somebody in the draft who you like at guard that you think's going to be available where you're picking? That's a dangerous game to play. So, if you can lock up, you need three interior linemen, right? If you can lock up somebody in free agency, one of these positions in free agency, you probably should. And it is a player who's been here. Yes, the appeal of Tevin Jenkins flipped on the team, right?
like that.
Now,
Yeah.
now I'm like making a case for why he's the best person
Like
available.
why haven't we already re-signed Tevin Jenkins at this
Yeah,
point?
it's so strange, man.
I mean, when he's healthy, we have to say that he is one of the better guards
And
in
we've
the
always
NFL.
said that. Yeah, we've
Yes,
always
yes,
been
and we have
very,
to reiterate it
very.
at this point.
Yeah, we've always understood how valuable he is as a player if he's able to stay on the field, but that just hasn't been the case. And then what is Tevin Jenkins gonna
That's
command?
the
And
that's the question. Does him understanding that his health and reliability is a huge factor in his pay, does that change what he's willing to accept? Can you get him on a 2-3 year deal at 7-8 million a year? Like, I mean, Dibbs is talking about here. He's talking about Zach Martin. I mean, he's retired. We'll see if that stays the case, because Zach Martin was a sneaky guy to me in terms of a 1 year signing. But Tevin Jenkins, I mean, I don't know if I'm willing to pay that guy 12 million a year or 10 million
yeah,
a year.
what scares me is what Dibbs just said here. The market's going to be dictated by what other teams are willing to pay him, and it's probably going to be too much, Dustin.
Yeah, then I mean, you don't know until you see. I don't know what the rest of the league thinks of Tevin Jenkins in terms of his availability, his reliability, his health. So it's like I don't think any team is going to want to shell out an exuberant amount for Tevin Jenkins. I just don't see it. Like his inability to stay on the field is a glaring weakness of his game, man. And it's one that there's no remedy for it. You got to stay
And
healthy,
it's
or either you're
and
healthy
it's
or you're not.
something that's crippled the Bears in the past. I mean, depending on this guy being available has really set them back, man. I mean, it's set Caleb Williams
Uh-huh.
back as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, and they drafted him injured. Like it's just been from the beginning with Tevin Jenkins. So it's like, do we want to do this dance again? Do we have a choice? I mean, I don't
And
know.
if
I will say that it is more palatable to me thinking about Tevin Jenkins remaining a Bear on a team friendly deal. I am much more open to that today than I was yesterday.
What sucks is we're not that winning team you're talking about that a player's willing to take a cut for. You know what I mean? This is not. Well, there's some appeal here now that Ben Johnson's here, but I don't know that a guy would return on on a lower cost just because he's been here before.
No, but it would be about his health. That's he would have to realize like you're not going to break the bank, and you got to have a healthy season, at least one, before you can do that.
And Ryan Poles said to him, "We'll discuss in the bye week. We'll discuss your contract," and he didn't stay healthy. So Poles made the right call, right? He did. He made the right decision.
Captain Joe King is in the building. What's up, man? I've never seen your name before. I appreciate you being here tonight with us on the bare minimum. Hit that like button, please, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, my friend. If you could go
What's
back
going
in
on,
time,
Captain?
if you could go back in time, would you draft Brian Thomas Jr. or Bowers over Odunze? Not Brian Thomas Jr. Although I love the hell out of him. I mean, it's a close conversation, I think, but I think the upside with Rome is still higher. And I think if Rome was in Jacksonville in that same situation, he might have produced very similar numbers to BTJ. Bowers, I think so. Yes, I was very adamant that I didn't want them to go for Bowers because I felt like it would be a luxury, but Rome ended up being a luxury too, a luxury pick. And Bowers seems to be an elite generational tight end who dominated the league immediately. He did it for two of my fantasy teams, which, I won both of those leagues. So thank you, Brock Bowers. And yeah, I kind of do wish the Bears would have drafted him. But honestly, if I'm thinking about a guy the Bears should have drafted, just to answer this question real quick, I wanted Jared Verse I wanted Jared Verse with that pick when it happened. And I think Jared Verse is one of the best young defensive ends in the league. And the Bears could really use a guy like that.
Yeah, you know how I feel. I love Brian Thomas Jr. and I would consider it. I would because they provide two very different. Rome Odunze to me is very comparable to DJ Moore, where Brian Thomas Jr. provides something completely different. He's not
The speed
a
to stretch the
possession
field.
receiver. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
the
not gonna he's
big
not gonna get you
playability.
10 catches for 112 yards. He's gonna get you 4 catches for 112 yards because
Yeah,
he
he's going to
needs to
average
take
20 yards a catch.
yeah, he needs to take the top off the defense. But I do
Listen,
believe that Rome's going to be a deep threat as well when he starts to play more.
Rome is a hell of a player. We have seen not even close to the tip of the iceberg with him. Like, I mean, there's so much under the surface there with Rome that has not been tapped into yet, and he's going to explode. I think we both do think that Rome Odunze is a very, very good player and can be an elite receiver in the NFL. I'm not putting words in your mouth when I'm saying that, right? Like, do you?
No, absolutely, and I think this too. I think there can't be enough value in this, and it's hard to quantify. But I think Caleb Williams loves Rome Odunze. I
Yeah,
really, really, really believe that. I think the relationship started before they were both drafted as the Bears, and it just grew stronger from there. And when Caleb was asked, "Who do you want to throw your first touchdown to?" because he didn't throw a touchdown in Week 1, he said Rome Odunze, and that's who he threw his first touchdown to. And he's not going to forget that moment. But guys, these two being drafted in the same year, you want to do this if you can. Their careers are just going to take off together. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The
they have great
numbers are worth.
chemistry. They have great chemistry. Rome Odunze is going to get much better. I mean, you saw his contested catch ability. You saw his big time catch ability in big time moments. That's only going to continue to grow. So, I mean, like, do I have buyer's remorse on Rome Odunze? No, I think Rome is a hell of a player and he's only going to get better. But looking at it right now, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it right now, you could say I'd rather have Jaden Daniels than Caleb Williams. He's the rookie of the year and went to the NFC Championship. I mean, he carried his team literally to the NFC Championship. So we can go back and redo all this. We got who we got, and I think we got some damn good players in those two.
And me and Dustin will not waver from this. And I do love Rome Odunze, but the receiver I wanted most, I would still take over Marvin Harrison, over Rome Odunze, over
Neighbors.
Bryant. Malik Neighbors was the player you and I were both very high on and said if you could possibly even trade up for
He would be
Malik
worth it.
Neighbors, that's
Yeah.
worth doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Bruce is in the building. What up? Breaking news, Bruce. Thanks for joining us, man. Hit that like button. So yeah, the Trey Smith thing is kind of disappointing to us as Bears fans. I felt it was pipe dreamish from the beginning, but you want to hold on to those things. You want to, the offseason is the time for hope, but those hopes have been smashed at this point. So it's time to consider a Tevin Jenkins resigning or a Will Fries or Zietler, or then we start getting into the draft. The combine's going on right now. Offensive linemen aren't going until Sunday, but I mean, Tyler Booker is out there. I mean, I continue to see him all over the place in mocks, like as high as 10 to the Bears and as low as 36. Like I mean, he can go anywhere. So it's like the Bears have chance at some guys in this draft that could take that place of that starting all pro caliber guard. I think Tyler Booker is that guy. And I think, and the more I'm reading, Brandon, is Will Campbell, just to everyone that knows anything apparently, and like I don't agree with it, but he's a guard. He's just not even going to get a shot at tackle. I don't agree with that. I would
Well, I
want
was
him.
just gonna say, even the tackles in this, if you wanted to double back on Braxton Jones, the guys who are in this draft, the tackle can play guard. I mean, it's Calvin Banks and Will Campbell would be your best guard immediately, the same as they would your left tackle on your
I
football
think they'd
team.
be your
Right?
best left tackle immediately too, and I
Yeah.
think that's a bigger position to need. But it's like, then are you saying I'm going to take an offensive lineman with my number 10 pick, like most people are projecting right now for the Bears, one of those Banks or Campbell, right? And then I'm going to turn around in the or the other name is Josh Simmons. You got to throw him out there. He's hurt, but
He's the
he is a stud
truest
left
left
tackle,
tackle.
the true
Yeah.
left tackle. And if his medicals are good, this guy's a top 15 player in this draft. And that draft buzz has him as basically an 88, rating on their scale. So it's like, could you entertain that? And then do you turn around with one of your 2 second-round picks and go offensive line again? And you have 2 rookies starting on your offensive line this year. I'm not against it, but at the same time, you
Well,
have concerns if you don't have veterans, Brandon. Donovan Jackson is a guy, another Ohio State guy, who's going to be a second-round guard who I fucking love. And
I
I
love
mean,
Donovan Jackson. I was actually just before we got on here, man. I was reading about Donovan Jackson. I was like, why is this guy so undersold? This guy is going to be
listen,
he's
he
going to be a
moved to
really
left
good player.
tackle, Brandon. He moved to left tackle when Simmons got injured and competed his ass off and played really well. This guy has versatility. He has a nasty edge to him. He's a big boy and he's a good mover. I mean, I would love the idea of going either Banks, Campbell, or Simmons, and then turning around and getting Jackson in the second round. But again, it just comes back to that's a lot of inexperience now that you're potentially starting in front of your second year quarterback. How do you feel about that?
I would love if they flipped this line in the draft, Dustin. I would love it. I would be really excited if they drafted 3 offensive linemen that they told us tomorrow or the day after the draft are all going to be starters on this football team. But that begs the question now that Trey Smith is gone and your offensive line free agency class just got so weak. Do you, like I said, now you have to start evaluating what's available where. So are you gonna now overpay a Josh Sweat because you think I'm gonna take 3 offensive linemen with my first 3 picks in this draft? You have to
I mean,
address the defensive line.
yeah. And I mean, you could go with a Dahlman or a Kelly and get that veteran at your
Yeah,
center
Dolman.
position.
Dolman is still a guy I'm excited about. I would
Uh-huh.
love to see the Bears make a run
Yeah.
at Dolman. I think he's a quality center, and I think if he's surrounded by good players like Darnell Wright and Will Campbell, he's even better.
Yeah, for sure. So if you were to go with one of them, and then maybe again, there's so much up in the air now, and Trey Smith coming off the board just kind of limits the options in terms of rebuilding this offensive line as quickly as we want them to. But as Dibbs points out right here, Brandon, he'd be happier with an edge with the pick at 10. And it's like,
I
well, the edge
I
is the
understood.
defensive linemen and the linebackers just went today. We got a lot to talk about when it comes to those defensive ends that performed
I'm
today at the combine.
I'm starting to believe, Dustin, though, that this is a much deeper class at that position,
Yeah.
the defensive line, which I'm sure a lot of people might interpret that as, yeah, take a defensive lineman at 10. No, I think that there will be more good players at that
More
position
quality
available
starters.
in your
Yeah.
second round. I think once you get past those top 6, 7 guys on the offensive linemen, it drops off pretty tremendously when you're looking at just their player grades, guys. And I know we can't take player grades for more than a grain of salt, but it does matter, right? I mean, there's a reason these guys have the grades. And I was looking at the guys who are measured as elite is literally the 3 we just named, Dustin. Simmons,
Offensive lineman.
Campbell. Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody else after that is not in the 90s. So I think with 10, man, I'm starting to feel like your hand is kind of forced. I feel like at 10, an offensive lineman is almost a must. And you know what, Tibbs? I don't love it. I am a much bigger advocate of pass rush than I am
We
pass
can't
protection.
we can't neglect the defensive line for another year.
No.
We can't. I mean, but it's just like the Bears have done so much neglecting of the offensive and defensive lines, that you're in the position where you have both to fix, and you got limited assets to do it with. So it's like you're going to have to pick and choose your spots. Braxton Jones becomes very much in play as your starting left tackle. And I mean, that's just what it is. And Javon Dexter will most likely be your 3 technique again. And you're going to run it back with those guys and hope that coaching improves them. And you hope that Austin Booker steps up. But when you start getting in all the hope stuff and ifs
Yeah.
and all that stuff, that's what we did last season. That's what we did last offseason going into that season, and we fell flat on our faces as fans, and
And
the
Nate
Bears
Davis got cut.
those players. Yeah. So it's like there's no way to improve it all in one offseason, but you got to be very smart about how you approach it, and you got to get some hits, as we've talked about, consistently here, man. If Dahlman is your center, I'm good with that. And then if you're taking Campbell or a Banks with that 10th pick, I think that those 2 additions right there drastically improve your offensive line right there. Run it back with Pryor or Caddyshack, and sign one of those 1-year $4 million guys, Brandon, that you were saying you don't want, but get some depth because you're attacking that position, and then you take some flyers later in the draft on some offensive line depth potentially. But you have to get defensive ends, Brandon. You have to get at least 2 via free agency in the draft to add to this defensive line rotation, and you need a defensive tackle. You need a 3 tech. You do.
When you see
So then you can get.
we see how much that matters when the playoffs come around, guys. If you're not getting pressure on the quarterbacks that you're going to play when crunch time comes around, right? When the Jalen Hurts, when you're facing the Jalen Hurts and I'll even throw I'll throw Jared Goffs and Jordan Loves in there. When you're in the playoffs, you've got to be able to get. The Bills consistently neglect this position, Dustin, and they consistently lose in the playoffs.
That's an unfair statement, though, Brandon. You say that they don't neglect it; they just miss. Like they went for
Last
Von.
time I said that on this podcast, I was told they got Von Miller. That's
No,
neglect.
it's not just that. They've drafted defensive linemen and defensive ends high. Ed Oliver, Rousseau, who's the guy out of Iowa that I'm blank? Epinesa. They've drafted defensive linemen throughout this
But
this window.
Isn't Oliver playing in like his 5th season?
Yeah, but that's the window that we're talking about. Ed Oliver was a number 9 pick. Epinesa was a 2nd-round pick. Gregory Rousseau was picked in the 1st round. I mean, they signed Von Miller. Like they have gone out of their way to try to address it. They've just missed on these guys. They haven't turned into the consistent players that they need.
They should just go trade for Myles Garrett, where they don't need to guess.
There's that too, man. Because today Myles Garrett's saying, "I don't want to re-sign with Cleveland." You got the GM Barry at the combine saying, "There's no way I'm trading Myles Garrett," but Myles Garrett is playing chicken with him right back, saying, "I don't want to re-sign here because you guys are not trying to win. We are not capable of winning, so I don't plan on being here." So does that game of chicken, that stalemate, come to an end? And are the Bears a player in that? I still think they should be. I mean, without a doubt, like you go for a guy like Myles Garrett. Just like you say the Bills should, I think the Bears really should.
That's proven talents. You're not. I mean,
You're not guessing. You're not taking a chance.
Every draft pick is risk and reward, right? With Myles Garrett, very little risk with Myles Garrett. You know who he is. He's been durable. He's been healthy, and his numbers don't decline. I mean, the guy's just an animal. There's no player like Myles Garrett in the NFL, really.
Bro, I'm just sitting here rooting for Myles Garrett to keep driving that wedge deeper between him and Cleveland. Every time some Myles Garrett shit comes out, I'm like, hopefully he said some bad shit about Cleveland. Hopefully we just get him to keep pushing himself out of there because I really need the Bears to be players in this, and I need there to be some kind of reality to this because Cleveland can say all they want that they're not going to move on from him, Brandon, but you can't keep a guy that don't want to be there, that's going to hold out, especially in the position they're in cap wise. They've got some moves they need to make to even get towards competency. So I mean, I just continue to hope that Garrett just keeps saying like, "Fuck you guys, I'm done. Move me."
Yeah, and Dib says here, in regards to people available to the Bears, not the biggest fan of Chase Young, but I'd be okay with signing him, drafting another edge rusher at 39. The thing that I love about Chase Young, and I say this every time somebody brings him up, is he's a really underrated run defender, and the Bears are just as much in need of that as they are some pass rush. So I wouldn't mind if Chase Young came at the right price. He's a good player to have, even if you do intend on drafting players to possibly start ahead of him.
With Chase Young, it comes down to effort, man. Effort, because he can be a really bad run defender too, and I've seen it for the Niners when he don't want to play, when he's not given his full effort. So I mean, like, it just comes down to effort with this guy, man. To me, like, he's got all the skill set and the physical abilities to kind of be a game wrecker, but he just hasn't done it, and I think it's a mental thing with him.
With some of the players, Dustin, that you're starting to see become, or at least rumored available or wanting out of where they are, their current situations, do you think any of these guys won't require the 10th overall pick? Like, I know John Allen came out yesterday and said he would like to seek other
The
avenues.
Commanders are giving him permission.
Yeah.
That deal's going to get done there. The Commanders want him gone too, just as bad as he wants to be gone. So that's going to happen. But it's like, yeah, there's no way he's worth that. Maybe
No.
maybe a third I'd do for Jonathan Allen. He's up there in age. I mean, he's got 1 year. He's got 1 year left on his deal. I mean, if you want him gone, you know, I'm not giving you a first round or a second round pick for him. And I don't know how much I would go
Yeah, they
after
kind
a
of
guy
showed
like
their
that.
hand really quick there, right? They kind of exposed themselves. You don't typically show, like when a player says I want out, who's one of the more quality players in your roster. You don't typically say like we're definitely open to everybody else taking a
Well,
chance. It's a shot at
what
this.
hurt him is that they made that run without him. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Yeah,
made that
he
run to
was
the NFC
indeed.
Championship without Jonathan Allen for most of the season. So it's like they're like, okay, well, we can get by without you, and they still got draft picks and they got a lot of cap room, so they can make some things happen. There's no way I don't lowball the shit out of them if I'm going for Jonathan Allen if I'm another team in the NFL.
There's no way if you're a player on the Commanders' defensive line, you should feel like your job is safe. They pretty much traded just about everybody who plays on their line in the last 2 years.
Well, yeah,
And
and I mean that defense needs a lot of work. They just drafted Jerzon Newton, so I mean they feel like they have some depth there, and again, like the ability to add more pieces that in the mold of Dan Quinn and what he wants. So I mean, Jonathan Allen could be a very legit possibility, and if you're telling me the Bears could get Jonathan Allen for a third round pick, I'm probably in on that. That's the most I'd give up for him. That's the most, and I mean honestly, that might be too rich for some people's blood.
and you could always try the throw in next year's pick approach.
Jonathan Allen is not a big target of mine. I mean, I know he's a damn good player and he's a good leader in the locker room. So, I mean, like, he will make your team better just by being on it. And could he help Javon Dexter unlock some potential into his next level of performance? Yeah, possibly. But I'm looking at the offensive line and I'm looking at edge rush. If I'm looking at a 3 technique, I'm looking to the draft. I think there's a lot of good tackles. And again, they went today, Brandon. Do we want to get into that at all? Anybody stand out to you today at the combine between the defensive linemen and the linebackers that went?
Well, the two best defensive linemen or best interior defensive linemen didn't opted not to
Nolan and Graham.
perform. Yeah, so that kind of hurts a little bit. But Dustin, the guy I liked
I
prior to
got
the
nothing for
combine,
you.
the guy who I liked prior to the combine, I thought stood out even more after the combine is Landon Jackson. He ran an impressive 40. His bench is impressive. Even his vertical was impressive. But I'll say that, man, Pierce.
His 40 was a 4.68. I just want to. Landon
Yeah.
Jackson's 40 was a 4.68. And real quick, his athleticism score was second highest of all the defensive linemen in this, and he was at an 86 overall athleticism score, which is damn good.
And then Pierce, man, Pierce ran a 4.47, which is really impressive for the size that this guy is. I mean, he's got some major burst. I think Pierce is a guy who you're going to start to see crawling up the. This is the first darling, I think. I think we're going to start to see this guy advance in projection pretty substantially. He's
Well,
kind of blowing people away.
in all these shows in this chat, I always see people throwing Pierce out there. I mean, big fans of Pierce on and as in these Bears fans that are in our shows, I always see his name come up. And Landon Jackson and Shamar Stewart and James Pierce are guys that everyone expected to kind of kill it at the combine. So I don't think that changes anything. The production has been the issue with these three guys, Brandon. They just don't put results on the field. So nothing really changed the minds of evaluators. I think this is kind of what people expected. You like to see that they confirm it, but Shamar Stewart still only had 2.5 sacks. James Pierce was a top 10 guy potentially last year, and he had a very down season this year in terms of production on the field. So you're still projecting these guys out based on their skill set and their size and their physical abilities. You haven't really seen the production on the field. So, I mean, you're going to be taking a chance on any of these guys. Pierce is going to be a first round pick. Shamar Stewart might have secured himself as a first round pick, but you're hoping that one of Shamar Stewart, Brandon, or Landon Jackson falls into the second round, which one of them most likely will, because that's a place I would be fine with the Bears taking a shot on a guy like that.
Another guy who impressed me today, Dustin, but I don't believe that the Bears have any intention of drafting a linebacker. If so, it's going to be in a much later round, possibly like a 6th round pick, is Kane Medrano. Kane Medrano kind of blew
the linebacker?
Everything. Yeah. Kind of like, and Sean had posted today that there's a UCLA linebacker that the Bears are interested in.
Schlesinger.
And I'm starting to think they're interested in the wrong one, man. I mean, Medrano came out today and really showed out, but like I said, guys, I don't think linebackers really in the cards for the Bears with as much need.
It kind of should be, Brandon. I mean, we saw a down season from Tremaine Edmonds. TJ Edwards is
season is putting it nicely.
And TJ Edwards is a good player, man. But like, you can add some depth to that. I mean, Jihad Campbell is obviously the best linebacker in this draft, and he had a great day today as well, and at the combine. And he probably cemented himself into the first round, which I think puts him out of the Bears' realm of possibilities. But I'm not a fan of the idea of Schlesinger. I mean, he's 220 pounds. He's pretty small. I mean, you see linebackers that are getting smaller in the NFL. But I like what Harris says here, man. Just go after the biggest, strongest, meanest motherfuckers that will bully the opponent. I like that strategy.
Well, and one of the 3 things that Ben Johnson said is most important to him is physicality. So kind of that specifically aggressive attitude, somebody who's gonna play mean. And we're starting to hear this a lot, guys. Is you kind of want that ass. You kind of want that guy who's just going to piss the opposing team off after the whistle. I mean, you're looking for that player now. So,
yeah,
I agree with you,
listen, one guy that stood out in terms of their athletic score was Javari Ritzy as a 3 tech out of North Carolina. He had a very good day today, and he had his most productive season of his college career this past season for North Carolina, 6.5 sacks. He's 6'4", 290, 295. I mean, he's one of those speed rushers from the 3 tech position that you can get, I mean, in the 5th, 6th round potentially. I mean, unless he moves up because of his athletic testing, but he's not very highly ranked. He's a guy that I like as a potential sleeper at the 3 technique for a team like the Bears in the later rounds.
And I think 6.5 sacks is what Landon Jackson too had. And you know what, man? These college guys, you're not seeing numbers, especially sacks, fly off the charts. I see Green had the 17, which is a pretty unheard of season for a collegiate edge rusher. So I think if you're looking in the second round, you're probably going to be looking for somebody who had production like that, and that's why they're there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, listen, You're going to take a chance, like you said, with any of these guys. Green is a guy that's shooting up draft boards since Senior Bowl, and I mean, he didn't participate today, but I mean, he's got the physical abilities. If it's
I,
me,
I think it's best for Green not to participate after the season he had, man. He does
yeah,
his
mostly I
values.
don't hold it against any of these guys for not participating in the underwear Olympics, Brandon. I mean, it's a smart move. They can only hurt themselves in most cases, and you know what they put on the field should stand on its own. And that's the thing I put the most stock into is how did you compete against the competition when the games mattered? That's what matters the most to me. These athletic scores, they're fun to talk about, but that's just projection and hoping. And I mean, I want to know what you did on the football field. And I mean, these guys have that film that they can just stand on. So good on them. I mean, the I'm looking for size and strength at the defensive end position opposite Montez Sweat. And I'm looking for size and strength at the defensive tackle position inside as well. I mean,
One
could
Dibs
you
here
you could
says
use
Ty
depth?
Robinson. Ty Robinson had a pretty good showing today. The defensive tackle out of Nebraska.
Yeah.
However, though, I went and looked at him a little closer, Dibs. And when he played quality football teams, he didn't really make an impact. When he played Ohio State and Illinois, teams that were ranked, he kind of disappeared from the box score. That's always got to concern you because that implies that when he's playing quality offensive lineman, he's having a little bit of trouble getting home. But he's the guy. He's 288 for a tackle. That's pretty small. So he's a guy who you think if you put some weight on Ty Robinson, he might be some
Or he
potential
can
there.
win with speed. Or he can win with speed and leverage on the inside. Harris throws out Armand Membu, the tackle that's going to switch to guard. I mean, that's a guy that I've seen the Bears projected
It's
to take
Missouri,
in
right?
multiple mocks. He's one of those mean motherfuckers that Harris is talking about. But I don't think that he makes a lot of sense
Not at
on
10.
yeah, I don't. If that's a trade back scenario, if the
Yeah,
Bears are not convinced that they can get an elite level talent at 10, the trade back is very much open. And then you're talking about a guy like Josh Simmons who has the injury concerns, and then you're talking about a Membu falling into your lap potentially if you move back a few spots at the 10 pick. Like I don't want to take that guy. I want Campbell or Banks in that spot. If again, results and production on the field matter the most to me. And you're talking about guys that competed against the most elite competition in college football on a consistent level, at a very high level for years of their college career, the entirety of their college careers, and they're leaders for their football team. So, I mean, those are two guys that I don't have a problem with the Bears taking in that 10 spot. And I do we touched on the edges and we touched on Shamar Stewart very, very briefly. But I will just say, man, Shamar Stewart is my favorite potential second round defensive end. If the Bears are going offensive line in the first round, Shamar Stewart is a guy I will bang the table for the Bears. He's got the size. He weighed in less in the combine than he did at the Senior Bowl, about 20 pounds lighter. But I mean, his physical attributes are great. His traits are awesome. He's got great ability to get pressure. Again, it didn't lead to the sacks, but he put a lot of pressure on college quarterbacks this year when
and
he
he
played them.
impressed today.
6'5", 267, man. That's a guy that I like him better than Landon Jackson, to be quite honest. But I think those two are close. And if the Bears can come away with one of those two in the second round after getting their starting offensive lineman with the 10th pick, Brandon, I think that would be an ideal situation for what the Bears are facing.
And two very opposite trends in health, right? That Landon Jackson's put on 40 pounds, and Shamar Stewart has dropped 20. So
They're
and
both
that's
massive. They're both really big dudes, and I want that in that
well.
defensive
When did
end
these
position.
guys start being the size of power forwards in the NBA? Like Landon Jackson's like 6'8". This guy's like a
He's
monster,
six,
man.
seven. I mean, from what I saw, his weight actually went down a little bit from what it was at the
No, it went
Senior Bowl.
down at the combine.
Yeah.
From his beginning of from the off season between his junior and senior season and the last game of the senior season, he had added 44 pounds, I believe.
Yeah, but he dropped about 20 of those from the Senior Bowl to the combine as well. So I mean, these guys are trying to get their speed
Yeah,
going. They're going to
they're
get back
working
to
their ass off. Yeah.
they're going to get back to their playing weight. And I mean, I think ideally the Bears, the way it's looking right now, we haven't seen free agency yet, but the way it's looking right now going into this draft, man, if the Bears can get a guy like Shamar Stewart or Jackson in the second round, and then get their running back with that other second round pick, that offensive lineman with that 10th pick, that's an ideal situation for me, Brandon. I don't know. How do you feel about that? If it's Will Campbell, Shamar Stewart, and Quinshon Judkins, I'm good with that.
It's gonna depend how the cards fall, Dustin. If Campbell and Banks were somehow off the board, I wouldn't mind taking an edge rusher with your first pick at all, man. I gotta believe by the time this draft comes around, Dustin Pierce is going to be projected somewhere where the Bears are picking with their first pick.
Yeah, but he's a guy I'm not. Listen, we've banged the table. I'll use that term again, Brandon, on the fact that the Bears should not trade back. You've got to get one of these elite level talents. If it comes to 10 and the Bears don't have one of those players on their board anymore that's available, they got to trade back, right? Like if you can't get one of those, maybe they have 8 guys and all 8 of those guys, they have 8 guys graded as blue chip talents and all 8 of those guys are gone before they pick at 10. You have to trade back then. And then that opens up some other possibilities for you and potentially gives you some other draft capital to work with in this draft.
Well, and we did, guys, go check out our last week's episode because we kind of talked about what you do when things start falling off the board when you're drafting with the 10th overall pick, and blue chips got to be most important to you no matter what the position. And we actually discussed, Justin, I saw this today. NFL released their literally just rankings of talents of all the players in the draft. Genti was first, Abdul Carter was second, Warren was fourth.
NFL Draft Buzz has Warren at 14th. So, I mean, like, it's going to vary from site to site. It's going to come down to that team's assessment and grade on these players. And we got to trust polls to go with his best player available. Deion Walker, man, that's Alfred Collins, big boy. I mean, both of these guys, big boys. Alfred Collins.
I like Deion Walker a lot.
I like Alfred Collins a lot out of Texas, man. Nose tackle, really. I mean, he's a huge dude. I mean, and Phillips. As well, Jordan Phillips, like these guys, there's some nose tackle potential out there too, but you only have so many picks, so that's where that trade back scenario kind of starts to seem appetizing, because if you can get an extra second round pick for moving back 6 spots, I mean, or 8 spots even, whatever, I mean, then Donovan Jackson becomes a possibility in the second round, along with that edge rusher and potentially your power running back that you still need to add to this offense as well. I mean, again, we're just throwing shit at the wall right now and hoping some of it sticks. But I mean,
that's kind of what a draft is.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean I love both of those.
There's the oldest theory in the book, guys. If you trade back for more picks, you're increasing your chances to possibly draft that guy, right? Because you're not guaranteed at 10 that you're going to take the right person. You're giving yourself more opportunity to succeed and fail if you're able to trade back and acquire more draft capital.
And Dibs asked, do we think Dennis Allen will be sold on Pierce?
Dennis Allen is a guy who finds a way to get pressure regardless of who's on his roster. Dennis Allen, I don't think is going to focus too much on one player improving the scheme versus he's real big on secondary, man. Well, so I'm very strange. Honestly, I'm very curious what Dennis Allen's vision is going to be based on the roster that he's being given.
Well, Brandon, this question is being asked because James Pierce is small for that defensive end position in a Dennis Allen scheme. Dennis Allen has had big defensive ends, big defensive linemen. Generally speaking, it seems to be the kind of prototype that he likes for his defense. I believe that's what Dibs is alluding to. And is Pierce a guy that Allen would advocate for? I don't think that he is.
What I was saying was he hasn't had a super successful pass rusher ever, Dennis Allen. And I don't mean that he hasn't been given the talent. I mean, no guy's ever flourished into being like a top 5-10 edge rusher on one of his defenses.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Jordan was already there.
Cam Jordan, I was going to say, was the closest anybody ever came. I think 10 sacks.
Chase Young had a solid season for the Saints this past year in terms of pressure.
The highest amount of sacks a player had on Dennis Allen's defense was like 12 or something. I know it's a very low number.
For sure. I mean, I personally don't think Pierce is a guy that Allen would advocate for. To answer your question, Dibs, I think he's going to want a bigger guy in the mold of a Shamar Stewart or Landon Jackson, guys we were talking about previously. And he says yes, that's what he's alluding to. I think he wants a bigger boy on the edge. Yeah, I think that's the case too, and that's what I want to. I want to see them add some size, strength, speed to this defense and get a little nasty, like Harris was saying earlier. And I mean, listen, we've gone back. We're going to continue to. The free agency is approaching quickly, and the Bears have money to play with here. They got and like I made the point on the House Hall Hangover on Monday, man. The Bears have had too many misses in free agency. The signings that they make, they have worked out pretty damn terribly overall, and that hurts your team. That puts you upside down in terms of your cap, because you're not getting any value out of the people you sign. And I mean, the good teams, Brandon, they find gems in free agency that overperform the market value that you paid for them. And I mean, the Bears really need to find some people that will do that this year. And I mean, we're talking about edge rushers, and I brought him up on the CSP show on Monday. I think Azeez Ojulari is one of those guys that the Bears could find a gem there, a guy that greatly overplays his pay on his next contract. You need something like that, man. I don't want to overpay for Josh Sweat and get middling production on a $20 million a year deal. Like that does not sound appealing to me.
And we beat up, a 33-year-old Lawrence. Is that something?
At least the value's there, though. You know what you're getting, and it's not going to be something you're overcommitted to. You're like, okay, well, we'll get you 1 year, $8 million or $9 million, whatever, and then we'll draft a guy that's a developmental thing, and you can help, build up Austin Booker and whoever that guy is. And nobody's going in with blind on that. They know what it is. Like Josh Sweat. That's a high pay for a guy that has had middling stats. I mean, he's had an 11 sack season. He's had a 9.5 sack season. Like it's just, I feel like.
Well, and we're watching too much for that guy. We're consistently watching Philadelphia Eagles defensive linemen get big deals somewhere else and kind of just fall off the earth, man.
And I brought this up because they have such a big rotation. These guys are constantly coming in with fresh legs. Yeah. And so it's like, you got to be wary.
Hargrave didn't really.
Yeah, it was a big bust for the Niners.
And then Reddick, we all know what happened there. I mean, that was a disaster. So once these guys depart, they're not in the same system. They don't stand out, man. I don't know. It's something me and you, Dustin, have kind of kept an eye on. I've said from the very beginning, Dustin, I don't want to give Sweat $20 million. Listen, you already got one shitty, sweaty contract on the other side. I'm sorry, guys. Montez Sweat is a quality football player. He's not a $98 million second round pick drafted or traded player. He's just not. He's not that guy. And every time I say this, somebody tells me, well, he just needs some help. Like, no, he's that person.
He's supposed to be the guy that helps everyone else.
Yeah, he's paid to be the multiplier.
Yeah.
It's not.
And you hope that like this last season was kind of an aberration and he can get back to health and maybe things change. Like again, that's just more hope. So it's like there's got to be talent added to this team on multiple levels, offensively and defensively, and the Bears don't have enough to fix it all in one off season. So you're banking on coaching and you're banking on getting a couple hits in free agency in the draft, and you're banking on a lot of progression from Caleb Williams. That to have a successful season, those are key things that will need to happen. What do you got here, Harris? Jared Ivey, Jordan Birch, Savion Jones, all edge rushers, 6'4", 270 pounds, 5 pounds, 8 pounds, options with size. Okay, for sure. I mean, listen, there are guys out there with the size, speed, strength combination that we will be looking for. There's a lot of options. This draft, if it's one thing, it's deep with quality players. Not a lot of top-end talent, but a lot of depth in this draft. So that could be good for a team like the Bears that needs to add to multiple positions.
And how are they doing this, Dustin? Because I know we still haven't seen like even half of the defensive linemen and linebackers that we're going to say. I think only like
No, no,
22
no,
schools. Go
no.
ahead.
The defensive linemen are done. Today was their day.
So are some of these like LSU had no players presented today. They have some really quality players on their defensive line. So like, why are these guys just? I'm looking at the schools that performed at the combine today, and it's only
They don't
25.
split it up by school, man. Yeah, it's what this is. It's
Or is
done.
this still? Are they still going right now, and they just haven't? These players aren't on the list
No,
because
no, not that I'm aware of.
there was a guy that I really really wanted to see perform at the combine from LSU. We Kyle
Who
and
is that?
Sean beat him up. Kyle and Sean beat him up on their show. His name, man, it's his name escapes me. I'll think of it though, man.
Well, the guy
But
that
there's some.
Kyle and Sean really talked a lot about, and Jay as well, was Derek Harmon, who had a killer combine today. And that guy cemented himself as a first round pick. And he's a guy, if you're trading back, that's a guy I consider because I think he might be my second favorite defensive tackle behind Mason Graham. I think I like him better than Nolan. Brandon,
Harris is
what do you
coming
got
with
there,
all.
bud?
Harris is coming with all the names, man. To be honest, his nickname is Sack. That's what they call him, Sack.
Tomorrow it's defensive backs, tight ends. Saturday it's quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs. Sunday it's offensive linemen. We're done on the defensive linemen. That's who we saw. Everybody's not gonna perform there, and I mean the numbers we have are what we have. And again, the combine is the combine. I don't put too much stock in what these guys do in this. I mean, it's important to see their movement ability. And I mean, a lot of these defensive linemen, you're looking at their high jumps and you're looking at their broad jumps, the vertical, because that shows a lot of strength in the legs. And the guys that we've talked about all perform very well. Shamar Stewart was top 2 in both of those categories. He's a guy that's got a lot of strength in those legs, and I like that. That's what you're looking for in the combine, is like the particular physical stuff that like show traits.
Braden Swinson was the guy I was talking about, Dustin.
Okay.
And I did not see anything from the combine. I didn't see his name.
I don't have my
And
draft report on Braden Swinson in front of me. I don't know if he's not healthy, not able to participate, but yeah. The defensive line and linebackers are done. That they've done their work for the week. Tomorrow we can look forward to the defensive backs and tight ends.
And that's the place I would imagine Ryan Poles is going to be looking. The safety is something this team is probably going to have to address, right?
I'm curious from Harris who he's eyeing for his Packers. What does he think the Packers'
Oh
biggest
boy.
need? What does he think the Packers' biggest need is in this draft, and who's his number one guy? Because I mean, for me, for the Bears, as of right now, the way it stands in terms of being realistic, I'm just kind of hoping Will Campbell is there at 10, and the Bears can take him and just cement
Yes.
themselves with a starting offensive lineman that's Pro Bowl level for the next 10 years. I wonder what that guy is for the Packers to Harris. What's up?
Don't even say it, man. No, Swinson did perform. It's just LSU's now listed on NFL's page, so I don't know. But he did perform. He got actually pretty awful grade. So maybe that's why nobody cares.
Thanks, Brandon.
He got a 69 for a total athletic score. That's really low.
Again, man, I don't really give a shit about these athletic scores. I don't even know what they mean at the end of the day. I like seeing certain players that I've seen on film, certain like physical traits showing in their movement
and you like to see the guys that you like prior to the combine
just add it to their resume.
During the combine,
just confirm what we already know.
To see that Landon Jackson had a good day today kind of validated the way I felt, honestly.
And that's like the thing, the bigger issue with the NFL combine. And I mean, the last couple of years, that people are up in arms. Oh, this guy's not performing. Oh, he's not throwing at the combine. Oh my God. You can only hurt yourself at the combine. And more guys are seeing
literally
that.
And figuratively.
Yes, correct. You can only hurt your draft stock. You can only potentially hurt yourself physically doing the drills. It's stupid. The combine is stupid, guys. These guys have put film out there for you to see for years in
against
college.
players.
Against actual competition
Yeah.
in key moments and in important games, and that's what they should be judged off of. Okay, the testing is just it is what it is. It's I guess it's a necessary part. The NFL makes money off of it. I know that, but I don't fault none of these guys for sitting out the combine, and I think all of them should, and then it can just go away.
Kyle Harris leaves a comment here, but I think he maybe jumbled it. It says number one need for Green Bay is DL, corner, and wide receiver. I think you meant to say need for Green Bay is number one wide receiver, DL, and corner. I don't think all three positions, Kyle, can be the number one need. I don't think that's how it's not how that works.
Well, maybe the Packers could potentially get all of those things because they just seem to have shit fall in their lap all the
This
time.
is complete and utter bullshit speculation, guys, but for some reason I see Keenan Allen being a Packer next season. I don't know why. That just keeps resonating in the back of my head.
I could not see Keenan
Oh,
Allen living
you just
in
got
Green
really
Bay.
dark, Dustin.
Yeah, I see that, Brandon. I see that. Not sure why.
Fucking vampire.
My laptop
Ivy
is
was a good mention though, Harris, for sure. Dibs agrees with you here. Ivy was a good mention. Jaden Ivey's a good player.
and I'm back.
There he is.
Any
And
thoughts on my
and
the combine
and
is stupid, Brandon?
and
Any
God said it.
elaboration on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know how I feel, man. I hate. It always bothers me when players who, like you just said, we watched. Listen, for a player who's played really well all season and then performs poorly at the combine, for him to lose stock is annoying. But for a guy who sucked all year to blow people away and be like a first round pick is the
Yeah,
most annoying thing in the world to
like
me.
John
And
Ross when he got drafted in the top 10 by the Bengals because he ran fast. It's
yeah,
like
and then you
okay,
see the fruits of his labor or not kind of pay off in the NFL, right? And
yeah.
and the Bears have never really been a victim of this, so I'm like we can say that, you know what I mean?
Well, listen, don't overthink it, guys. You saw these guys perform. You saw them play. You have their film. Let's just get guys that are mean motherfuckers that will beat the guy up across from him, like Harris said. I'm gonna keep going back to that because I just love that statement. And they've shown it on film throughout their careers. That's who you should go after. That's who I want the Bears to go after. The Bears don't just need talent, Brandon. They need an identity switch. And you need those nasty motherfuckers to help you switch that identity, not just in the locker room or on the practice field, but on the field during games. I want to watch a team where the teams that are going to play them are afraid. They
I
know
want to
they're going to
watch.
get beat up.
I want to. You said not just practice field, but I think that's where you see it first and foremost. I want to see guys who are willing to hit their own teammates. I want to see guys who start shit with the guys across. I want to see this defense
You
and
got
offense.
Tyreek Stevenson.
They always do that blue versus orange or whatever, the blue versus white, where the offense and defense actually physically play each other. I want to see, the scrummage. I want to see the little fights. I want to see these guys piss each other
The
off.
scrimmage.
I want to see them hit each other hard, man. That's what I want to see. And Tarek Stevenson did piss some people off in camp last year, and Chase Claypool pissed some people off a few times the year before that, or a couple of years before that. I want those guys, man, dogs. I want guys who just it doesn't matter who's across from them, teammate or not. They're going to give it their all every time they step on grass, man.
Chicago Football Connection tweeted earlier, calling my shot. Jared Ivey is Dennis Allen's guy. Okay, so yeah, Jared Ivey is a legit potential for the Bears. I mean, again, the more size and strength and speed you can add to this defense, the better. I'm all for it. Brandon, what else we got tonight, man? I mean, we touched on the combine and how stupid and pointless it is. We touched on
Well,
the Trey Smith disappointment.
I'll
What
say
else we got?
this, man. If it's any inclination, Adam Schefter is a pretty insightful individual. He seems to have a good relationship with an insider in every organization. He says the Browns are 100% taking a quarterback, and Cam Ward, I think, was the name that was affiliated. So I don't know if that's going to cause some sort of trick. If that's the truth, if that dictates how the draft will go, guys, we want quarterbacks to be taken before the Bears pick. We want that to happen. It's not a very
The
strong
problem.
class.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
The problem is, Brandon, that there's only two that are going to that hasn't changed. Every mock draft has those two, Shador and Cam Ward, going in the top 10 before the Bears pick. So there's not going to be a third one that jumps into the top 10. You kind of hope that some skill position players move up, like Tyler Warren, McMillan, Luther Burden, like teams that you want to see those guys get pushed up there, because that can push some of these big uglies back to you at that 10 spot. And I I don't know, man. If I'm the Browns, I'm definitely taking a quarterback, Brandon. Like you have no choice. You're in cap hell with a quarterback that is complete trash and is a shell of his former self. And the only way to even have a chance to get out of that is to get a good quarterback on a rookie contract. So the Browns have to take a chance on one of those two guys. They have to. I don't see a way around it.
Yeah, they've got to move on from that whole experience. The
Will
Deshaun
Howard
Watson.
Will Howard top 10, please. Yeah, and let's get Jackson Dart in there too. Let's get 4 quarterbacks in the top 10. Just these teams get so desperate. You got 3 teams in the top 10, Brandon, that have to have quarterbacks in this draft, in my opinion. And that's the 3 at the top of the list. That's the Titans, that's the Browns, and that's the Giants. All 3 of those teams. And you know what? Let's throw the Jets in there too. The Jets need a fucking quarterback badly as well. Dib says, fuck it, make it 5. Who's our 5th guy? I'm out of names.
Yeah, let's have a team trade for a quarterback in the top 10 during the draft.
Harris says, I can see Green Bay going after a top corner or edge with the offenses in the north. Yeah. So I mean, like you're kind of hoping for that James Pierce guy or that Mike Green guy with the Packers, but I mean they're far enough back there where they're probably going to be out of the realm of possibility for that. I mean, I don't pay attention to the Packers on these mocks, to be quiet. I mean, I read through them, but I don't have any of them in my head. So just curious what the other people in the NFC North are thinking about their teams. I mean, I wish Purple Jesus was in here to give me some Vikings talk.
Well, there's some.
Right, that's enough Green Bay talk, Harris. That's enough. I'm sorry.
He believes they're going to lose Jair. I don't know why that would occur.
No, yeah, Jair Alexander is needs a fresh start, and the Packers need him to be gone. That relationship is fucked. So like that,
Yeah,
I believe that will happen.
The league kind of needs that guy to be gone.
Yeah. Listen, I'll say this just to randomly off topic. That Lakers Mavs game was the most watched NBA game of the season. You're gonna see that become a rivalry. Luka torched those boys, and he had his former teammates clapping for him off of their bench. I mean, it's a weird thing to see him playing against the Mavericks so soon, but I am a big fan of the way Luka and LeBron are playing together. That defense has been amazing over the last few weeks. And I'll just say, man, the Lakers,
I hate
them too, but they might go to the finals, Brandon. I think I'm going to pick the Lakers to go to the finals.
For what it's worth, guys, even if you don't like basketball, do yourself a favor. Just Google Shaden Sharp dunk on Wizards. Just go watch. Just go watch it. I don't like I said. You can be the biggest football fan in the world. You have to appreciate what happened in that game.
Yeah, his physical ability is insane. I love Shaden Sharp. We were talking about it last night after you sent me the dunk. But like, I think Shaden Sharp has a lot of untapped potential, and that guy could be a stud in the NBA if he ever finds some consistency. But yeah, man, I'm going Lakers to the finals the way it's looking right now. I love Luka so much, man. Luka might turn me into a Lakers fan. That team, and LeBron went off in that game too, man. That was just a hell of a game. I hope a lot of people watched it, and I know a lot of people did, but I hope a lot of you watched it because that was fun. And Kyrie and Luka going back and forth was a lot of fun to watch. So I mean, the NBA is about to get kind of interesting here, coming down to the wire, going into the playoffs, and the Bulls.
I don't know if you saw it. I posted on our 4 Stars Facebook group. I posted a picture of Luka it was clear he had just hit a big
Oh,
shot.
staring at Nico Harris.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, that is like that's kind of like that Ali standing over the guy. He just knocked the hell out. That photo right there, man. That should resonate for a while with a lot of people, especially the fans of either one of those teams. Because if you're a
Luca,
Dallas Mavericks fan, how just
yeah,
robbed do you feel
that's
of your
a nut
time?
kick. That's a
Yeah, of
kick in
your
the nuts,
attention.
bro.
Yeah.
That's a kick in the, and he gets his first triple double with the Lakers against you in their first game. And Anthony Davis is just sitting there in a cool blue sweater, and he's not even on the court. And it's like, what the fuck? How could
Thanks for
I
joining
be
us,
a part of
Tibbs.
this? Hey man, good to see you. Come back again next week. We appreciate you, Dibs. Thanks for coming back. They always come back. And
Yeah,
then
no,
also like
Kyle, appreciate you too. Some of these guys who provided some. Who brought the question to us? And I think it was one question he wrote out.
Joe King.
Captain Joe King. Thanks for the question, man. That actually stirred up some conversation I enjoyed having for sure.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the chat always, man. And breaking news, Bruce, obviously, of course, he's like a member of the family, basically. So, I mean, we appreciate everybody for being here. We did do a movie review last week, and like we want to make it a consistent thing. We're not sure how we're going to do that yet in terms of if it's going to be its own show or what. We don't have a movie review this week, but I will just say this: I did take time out of my life to watch Captain America: Brave New World. And I would suggest to all of you, don't do that. Don't watch that movie. don't waste your time. That movie.
I quit on Marvel so long ago, man. So long ago.
I love Marvel. I love the Marvel movies, man. I've always liked them. I've always liked them more than you have, and I found different value in them than you have. But this like I said to you, man, there's Marvel fatigue, and then there's Captain America: Brave New World. It is just they don't know what they're doing. It was just total trash, man. And yeah, just don't watch it. Don't even waste your time.
Guys, go watch The Gorge if you're looking for something entertaining.
He says The Gorge was good.
The Gorge was good. Go watch that.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that.
It was entertaining from start to finish, man. I must say that. And the two, there's really only two actors in the film, and they both do a really good job.
I love Anya Taylor-Joy. I really do. And then what's that? Flight Risk. I want to see that with Mark Wahlberg, the Mel Gibson movie. That's
the bald Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, bald.
It's not even believable.
Mark Wahlberg. Huh?
It's just so strange that Mark Wahlberg can't pull off bald. It's like not believable that Mark Wahlberg.
It looks like he's wearing a shower cap.
First time he took his hat off in the preview, I'm like, I don't think I can do it. I don't know.
Looks like Fire Marshal Jim from The Living Color. Like,
it's like I don't know, man. It's like trying to convince like Brad Pitt to play like a mutilated, ugly ass individual. It just doesn't play, man.
T is a Detroit fan, obviously. Saying go Pistons. Listen, the Pistons, I would not want to play them in the playoffs. Cade Cunningham is the shit. I love this guy. People were saying he was a bust. They were so wrong. And I was telling everybody, I love me some Cade Cunningham. And I love that Pistons team. They got a lot of talent, a lot of young talent.
I know every time I heard Ivy, I just kept thinking.
I kept thinking of Jaden Ivey. Yeah.
Who's injured? I said Jay, not accident. Yeah. But no, Cade Cunningham just made history somehow. Last night, he did something that no player in the NBA has ever done. I forget what it was, man.
Dude, I traded.
He hit like 9 threes, bro.
Cade Cunningham was my my darling pick in fantasy basketball. He was a guy I knew was going to blow up, and he did. But then I got offered DeMar DeRozan and Trae Young for him, so it was like I couldn't turn that down. It was too good of it. I didn't want to give up Cade Cunningham. But I did. I'm sorry, T.
Well, and speaking of fantasy value,
at least you still got him.
Josh Giddey over 4 games in fantasy is averaging like 70 points. And this. Listen, man, there's not much to be excited about if you're a Bulls fan.
Giddey is something to get giddy about.
The Bulls lost traded Alex Caruso for a guy who's becoming exactly what he was supposed to be when he was drafted.
Brandon, if you remember, the Bulls got dogged for that trade, and I was telling everybody this is a fucking awesome trade. The Bulls got a steal.
I think we were both pleading to trade Caruso a lot earlier than that too.
Yeah. I mean, to get a guy like Giddey, a top 10 pick who still hadn't realized their potential, I mean, that was a hell of a move for the Bulls. So I mean, I'm happy about that. But I mean, yeah, the Bulls are. I don't want to see them in a play-in game, dude. Just put us
I
out of
know.
our
I
misery.
saw that today.
Don't
I
do
saw that
that.
they were technically in it if the season. I was like,
Yeah,
ugh,
yeah, they're the 10th seed. It's
ugh.
like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Get in the lottery unmistakably. There's no point in doing this, and let's just move on with our lives to next
Right?
season.
Just say that Vooch and Kobe are injured for the season. just,
Yeah, yeah.
just chalk it up, man. I don't. What's crazy too, man, is the ownership of this team is excited for the like we could make the play, and like it's a positive thing for them.
Oh, yeah, management. AK needs to go, man. Eversley needs to go. It's just the same old story on repeat with these Chicago Bulls, bro. But I do think this NBA playoffs is gonna be sick, and I am just gonna predict it right now. Lakers Celtics renew the rivalry. I would love to see a Lakers Celtics finals, man. Everybody's gonna pick the Thunder, and I mean, yeah, they're damn good, and it makes total sense. But I
Yeah, the
like
most
the
well-rounded roster in the NBA for sure. Probably the
He
Celtics
is
and the
throwing
Bucks.
out Night Agent on Netflix. I haven't
I
watched
watched
it.
Night. Oh, I didn't
I've heard
know. I didn't know season 2 came out. I watched the first season. Yeah, he's like a guy who sits in a FBI in a room over a phone for the FBI, and people call him and say like they're in trouble. Agents, like it's
he's
interesting,
like,
man. It's an interesting idea.
this is time and a half, right? Like he's like the time and a half guy. I'll check it out. Thanks, T, for the recommendation. And me and Brandon are on season 3 of Reacher. We've both watched the first 2 seasons and have talked about it a lot. And we were talking about it tonight a little bit. So season 1 was fucking badass, dude. Season 2 was not as good as season 1. I couldn't expect it to be, but it was still good. Season 3 is reaching a level of cheesy so far. I haven't watched the newest episode, but season 3 is reaching a level of cheesy so far that I'm not very comfortable with. I love this show and I love the character of Reacher and the guy that plays him, but Anthony Michael Hall is awful, and he's a big part of this show.
When
And you brought up the
Alan Ritchson has done a good job in season 3. They just
yeah, he
wrote it
has, but everything around
very.
him kind of fucking sucks.
If I were him reading the script, I'd be like, are we serious with this shit?
Yeah, dude. It like he's just kind of like getting away with shit that doesn't make sense in the situation he's in. Like it's getting a
And then
little too
it
far
all
fetched.
somehow falls together the way he needed it to. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly. It's like it's
It's like
getting less believable as it's going on. And Nagley's just gonna come out of nowhere and save his ass. He's gonna get saved by the strong, independent black woman. That's gonna happen for sure. But Anthony Michael Hall makes everything terrible that he's in. He's just not a good actor. It's so clear. Like he can't hang in any of these scenes. And then you were talking about the girl with the terrible Boston accent that like puts Jack Nicholson's
oh.
Departed accent to shame. It's awful. It just takes me out of it every time that bitch talks, man.
It
I can't
reminds
stand
you
it.
know what it reminds me of this and the episode, the season or the scene in Ted where they're talking about having sex with the woman from Boston and how unappealing that is because she speaks during it's like I'm saying literally how I feel when this woman opens her mouth. It's like I can't.
So watch season 3 of Reacher, guys.
Yeah, check that out. Yeah.
Listen,
Good.
it's a
If you're
great
looking
show,
for a
but yeah.
laugh, watch Shrinking, man. If you guys are looking for a laugh, watch the show Shrinking. It's the funniest thing I've watched in a long time. It really is. It's
Yeah, I
funny.
love Jason Segel. I'm never gonna get Apple TV. I got too many other things going on and too many streaming services, bro. But like, yeah, I've always been intrigued by the idea of that show every time I see it.
And I think I
And
told you this a while
Paradise,
ago.
we recommended Paradise last week. Let's just do it again, Brandon, because
Yeah, I'm caught up.
Paradise is fucking awesome.
Yeah. And another good show I told you to watch this, Dust. I'm sure you haven't yet. It's on Peacock, guys. Day of the Jackal is incredible.
I've thought about it as
Incredible.
I've rolled past it, man. Yeah, I do got Peacock. It's just I'm about to have
You'll
this time
never
off, so maybe I can catch up on some
you'll
shit.
you'll never
There's so
root
much to
more
watch.
for you'll never root more for an assassin. It's an awesome show.
Fuck yeah, I like the sound of that. And then Bill Simmons has a whole Celtics documentary coming out on Max this week. I got to get in
Everything
on that.
Bill Simmons does is awesome, so that's
Fucking
gonna be good.
spectacular,
You
yeah.
can
So
you
it's
can go ahead and rate that before you watch it. It's a 5. It's 5
yeah,
stars.
yeah. That's gonna be awesome. So we should both watch that and kind of give some reviews of that. I mean, I have fun doing this, and I'm glad T is in on this because T loves Day of the Jackal. He's with
That's
you
my
on that.
T's my man. T's watching the shit I'm watching. T, I mean, you could sit down and watch a TV show. I feel like definitely.
And a Bears Lions game too. Fuck it, that'd be a
Yeah.
lot of fun. get together a
He'd
watch party.
he'd probably have the ability to talk a lot of shit during the Bears lines.
T has a lot of knowledge on football, man. I always love when he jumps in our chat. But Ozark, that's one that's eluded me. I've never watched it. It's just always been
I
something.
watched a little bit, half of the first season. It was good, man. I don't know why I had this. Something drew me away from it. I think my life just kind of got busy. It's
Yeah,
something you got
life
to
is too
focus
busy
on.
for all these fucking shows, man. It
Yeah, no,
really
but
is.
winter out here, man. It's like, hey, find some shows, man.
Yeah, I'm kind of blanking on like, oh, you know what? The Penguin. The Penguin was the last really good show I watched. Yeah,
I still don't buy
Colin
that. That's
Farrell's
Colin
fucking
Farrell.
amazing.
I
It's
still don't
amazing.
think it's him. I watch it now, and I'm like, that's not him. They
The
just put
way
his name
that's
on this.
the way that season ended was like mind blowing, dude. I fucking love that show. And then obviously you can always rewatch The Sopranos at any point, and that's always great.
Yeah, the way that show ended was insane. I mean, because
Yeah, dude.
you're watching it forgetting this guy's a villain, and then they bring it back
Yeah,
around.
like that show did the best job, and it reminded me of The Sopranos. That's why I just brought up The Sopranos. That show did the best job of keeping you very grounded to the fact that these are all bad people. And the one person that wasn't a bad person had to go.
Yeah.
It did a very good job of saying like, yeah, you can root for this guy or this gal, but at the end of the day, these are pieces of shit. Let me remind you of that.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
like halfway through the season, you're like forgetting and you're rooting for, and
Like
then
they
you're
got
like,
a really good relationship. It's like a
oh,
father-son thing going on, and then like you get to the last episode and you're like, nah, never mind. That wasn't what was
maybe he's
happening.
not a bad guy. And then you're like, oh yeah, he is that guy that tried to murder Batman in like 900 different comics and episodes.
Oh, dude, the penguin that they've come up with in this, and that's why I love it because it's so gritty. Like this motherfucker is like worse than the guy who's trying to
Evil.
kill Batman. The
Evil is
stuff
the
that this
word.
guy has done in his life from the time he was a kid it's crazy to even try to wrap your head around it. So if you haven't watched the Penguin, definitely check that out. T's on board with that.
I'm excited for the second series of that Batman, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I
For
mean, it's
Robert.
going to be interesting to see how they put it all together, and I mean, if they're going to tie in this, I'm going to imagine they're going to tie in this Penguin stuff. The one thing I will say, man, is DC, with now James Gunn, running that, it's going to become the new Marvel. Like they're doing things that they're doing things that are innovative and going out there on limbs. And I mean, the Peacemaker is a great example of that. That show with John Cena, dude. If you haven't watched that, it's fucking amazing. It's just off the wall superhero, like the most
I think I've seen
ridiculous
a few
thing there is.
episodes. It's like it's comedy, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
comedy, but I mean, it's good drama wise as well. It does a good. It's just a good story too, and I mean, yeah, it's
We
just
knew what you meant, T. What's
yeah.
he
What's the
talking about?
penguin?
Yeah,
What's the
what's
pekin?
he
Is that?
referring to?
Sorry, T.
I've never heard of the superhero Ant-Man. Fucking
Fuck
with you, T.
Ant-Man. Oh my god, those movies are awful. Hey, T, check out Peacemaker. Seriously, that shit is amazing. If you're into my like the humor is sadistic. It's awesome. I loved it. I
I'm
wish
gonna
they would do
watch
more
it.
of it. All right, man. So yeah, that's how we're gonna end the show. Fuck it. This has been fun,
Well, yeah,
Brandon.
there's not, man, the football stuff. Shit, we could sit here all day and talk about TV shows and movies, man, for sure.
Yeah,
And
because
get
it's
on
just a
that.
never-ending supply of content coming from that, man. It never
And
stops.
I'm sure T's watched it. I'm gonna watch Severance. I'm sure T's watched it.
Severance. Listen,
Man,
man.
it's weird, but you're like, this one's ending. I'm gonna watch the next one.
Since we're still talking, I'll just say this: am I the only one that sits on their couch and flips through all these available shows and just thinks how lucky they are to live in this time? Because I grew up in a time where you had to have specific times where you got to go get in front of a TV because the one show that you like is coming on once a week on a Saturday morning or a Sunday night or whatever, and like you got 6 channels that you can choose from, and that's just it. Like, how lucky are we to have all the, like, you can say like it gets watered down, but at least you have all these options, and there's so much great shit out
Yeah,
there,
the
dude, to
one thing
choose.
that I struggle with, man, and I know the wife gets pretty frustrated about is like the
You don't
one
know what to
bad thing
pick.
about it is like
Yeah,
when I somebody I was introduced to Game of Thrones when they're already in like the fifth season, and I was so captivated by the episode I watched. It was actually the episode where Ramsay Bolton castrates Theon. And I
nice.
was like, I want to watch this guy die now, this Ramsey Bolton. And dude, I watched 5 seasons straight in like 2 days. I was like, I can't do this, man.
The binge
Came out
aspect.
of my room like, what's going on? What year is this?
Yeah, I did the same thing with Game of Thrones, man, for sure. And it's like that binge aspect is good, but it's also bad for what you're saying. But also, like, having so many choices, what my wife will get frustrated with me about is like, I can't pick shit. Like, I'm just like, I could watch this or I could watch this, but is this, there could be something better if I keep scrolling, or, like you get
Yeah,
going.
well, and we now I
Yeah.
have to like I'm literally now writing a list of the shows that I have to make sure I continue to watch, like the ones that I watched this season. And I'm like, I gotta see, like, but my she doesn't even like we talked about. I was like, hey, when the second season of The Gentleman comes out, we have to
That
watch that. And
was such a great
she's
fucking
like,
show.
what the hell was that? And I was like, I showed her the cast, and she's like, nah, nothing. I got nothing. I was like, you liked it. You literally enjoyed watching it. She had no idea.
T
Yeah.
binge Game of Thrones too. Yeah, I mean, and listen,
See, I
honestly,
think I pretended to be sick to binge Game of Thrones. I'm coming down with something, a case of the Thrones.
House of the Dragon is good too. It started out
It
slow,
is.
man, but it's fucking really good. Like, there's
Yeah,
just
the
so much
acting.
good shit out there, man. We are lucky to live in a time where there's so much amazing content to choose from, and I just tend to appreciate that, because like I grew up in a time where that was not the case at all, and we're spoiled as shit, dude. But again, there's pluses and minuses to it too. You still got to get out. You still got to get active. You still got to do your job and all this shit at home. So it's
You
like,
still got to raise your kids, guys.
yeah, there's that too. Finding time to balance all these things, it's tough, man. Hey, man, it's been fun. I always
Yeah,
appreciate you, Brando, and we'll talk again, guys. This
it's
is
been a
4 Star
blast.
Chicago Sports. What's up,
Back
Brandon?
on Monday. We'll be back
We'll be
on
back
Monday.
on Mondays. We'll be here on Saturday actually for the Cubs show. Saturday at 11. Make sure you check that out. We'll be Monday night for the Hollis Hall Hangover. Hopefully, all four of us are together again. And again, this is 4 Star Chicago Sports. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button, please. We appreciate everybody for being here. T, you've been great, man. I'm glad we got to talk some shows, and check out
Yeah.
Peacemaker.
Thanks for
Yeah,
joining in late, T.
yeah,
We
fuck
were
yeah.
about to hang it up, man. We stayed here with you, T.
It's always
Appreciate you,
fun when
man.
that happens. Hey,
Best Lions fan I know.
all right, guys. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you soon. Bear down.